Okay, the USA have defeated the Netherlands 2-0 in the Women's World Cup final in a surprisingly one-sided final. The scoreline doesn't suggest that, but actually it was actually quite a one-sided final come the end. The first half, the US dominated. They had a hatful of chances, and Van Wiedenhal, the Dutch goalkeeper, has kept it at 0-0. Then the Dutch, right at the end of the first half, are down the other end of the field. They counter-attack quite effectively, one of the few times they did. Get a free kick, then they get a corner, and the Americans don't look confident clearing the ball. There is a brief spell where the Dutch had an opportunity to take the lead. Of course, they didn't, but they had an opportunity that the Americans looked a bit wobbly. The Americans had all this possession, all these shots, put under a bit of pressure. They looked a bit wobbly. They looked like they'd been, overconfident with their attack. Their defence had switched off. They did not look great for that brief 5-minute spell at the end of the first half. But half time comes. It's 0-0. And the longer it goes on at 0-0, the more likely an upset could happen. The Americans' defence is their weak point. They have been seen to have switched off in this tournament. Spain game, for example, the game against England, the game against France, all the goals they've conceded in this tournament, they have switched off when they have been leading. This is the first game where they haven't scored within the first 15 minutes. It took them 61 minutes to get the first goal, so clearly they're used to starting fast and getting a lead and then controlling the pace of the game. They couldn't do that. They had to keep attacking and attacking. Eventually, they get the breakthrough, and it comes via a VAR penalty decision. Now, VAR got it right. I'm not criticising the decision. I'm criticising the length of time. 3.5 minutes is too long. Now, I think it was close to 4 minutes by the end, but Megan Rapinoe on 61 minutes keeps her composure, slots the penalty, and Van Wiedenhal's defence is broken. The Dutch, you can see their shoulders sink a little bit, their confidence start to drain away. Rose Lavelle's goal comes from the Dutch basically having a meltdown in midfield. Misplaced passes, sloppy misplaced passes. Rose Lavelle's finish is an absolute cracker of a shot, deserving to win a World Cup final. And from a player who goes under the radar, some of our teammates like Rapinoe, like Alex Morgan, getting all the headlines for a variety of reasons, both on and off the field. Celebrations, this, political comments, that, whatever. Rose Lavelle has gone under the radar, hard-working, box-to-box midfielder. And she has been getting a couple goals in this tournament. She has created goals for others. She puts in the hard work. Very underrated, and I can definitely say this. You're going to see a lot more of this name in the future at Olympic Games and at World Cups. Rose Lavelle is a name to watch out for over the next 10 to 15 years. Well, this is her first major tournament, I think. Yeah, she's going to be a mainstay for this US setup for the next decade or so. That is a name to watch out for, and her winning goal of the World Cup makes it that a VAR penalty review isn't the reason why a World Cup is won and lost. We can discuss the fact that the Dutch looked tired, and by the end of the game, at the final whistle, their formation, they've just gone on for full-on attack mode, but without having the quality to do so. They've put 3 at the back and pushed a lot more players into midfield and up front. They cluttered the midfield. They're not creating the passing moves they should do. It was just the throw the kitchen sink formation, as I call it, and they didn't really throw the kitchen sink. They didn't get enough crosses in. They didn't get enough shots in, and they kept turning the ball over, which made their job of getting back into the game harder. Even though the Dutch like scoring late goals, they just did not show enough today. They barely had a shot on target. I think they had 2 shots on target throughout the entire game. The Americans had like 14, 15 attempts on and off. I think 9 or 10 that were on target, and about 14, 15 in total. The Dutch just weren't creating enough. But yes, they did look tired. When the final whistle goes, the Dutch are out on their feet. Now, you can point to the semi-final against Sweden going to extra time. You can point to them having less time to prepare for the final. And that's a question that's been raised, and a topic that's been raised in every major men's tournament since the 60s. Should they play both semi-finals at the same time? Should they play all 4 quarterfinals at the same time so no one team has an advantage going into the next round? That's been debated a lot. The Americans adapted better to the hot, humid conditions than the Dutch, and they kept the rhythm up in the game. They didn't allow I mean, they didn't play well. The Americans didn't play at their best, but they kept the rhythm going. They kept going with the game plan. They broke the Dutch down with a bit of luck with the VAR review, but they got that penalty. They got the first goal. They got the second goal, and then they could control the pace of the game. The Dutch were not on the same page at all in this game. However, they've come a long way. The women's game in Europe has grown a lot, both here in the UK and on the continent. We've seen the Italian league really come a long way, the Spanish league. The Dutch are now, second consecutive tournament final. The Germans are looking a shadow of their former selves. The Germans, the big team of Europe, out at the quarter-final stage. Sweden and the Netherlands getting through to the semi-final stage. These are all positive signs that the women's game is getting more competitive, but the US is still that step ahead. But how long will the US be the top nation in the world? That is another key question, because I do think that gap between the United States of America and the rest of the women's footballing world is closing. But on a side note, the USA are the first team to retain the Women's World Cup. So they're the first team to actually win back-to-back Women's World Cups. That's interesting. Can they do it a third time? Or is this the USA finally on the downswing? Have they, has this core of players, have they got enough depth coming through to replace them? Is the women's league system in the US strong enough to keep producing talent to replace Megan Rapinoe and Alex Morgan when they retire? And Carly Lloyd and others. Are there enough Rose Lavelles out there in the women's game in America? So I'm going to leave those questions for you. Place your comments in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.